Annihilation of Caste by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Part 15. But to object to this kind of liberty is to perpetuate slavery, for slavery does not merely mean a legalized form of subjection. It means a state of society in which some men are forced to accept from others the purposes which control their conduct. This condition obtains even where there is no slavery in the legal sense. It is found where, as in the caste system, some persons are compelled to carry on certain prescribed callings which are not of their choice. Any objection to equality? This has obviously been the most contentious part of the slogan of the French Revolution. The objections to equality may be sound, and one may have to admit that all men are not equal. But what of that? Equality may be a fiction, but nonetheless one must accept it as the governing principle. A man's power is dependent upon 1. Physical heredity. 2. Social inheritance or endowment in the form of parental care, education, accumulation of scientific knowledge, everything which enables him to be more efficient than the savage. And finally, 3. On his own efforts. In all these three respects, men are undoubtedly unequal. But the question is, shall we treat them as unequal because they are unequal? This is a question which the opponents of equality must answer. From the standpoint of the individualist, it may be just to treat men unequally so far as their efforts are unequal. It may be desirable to give as much incentive as possible to the full development of everyone's powers. But what would happen if men were treated as unequally as they are unequal in the first two respects? It is obvious that these individuals, also in whose favor there is birth, education, family name, business connections, and inherited wealth, would be selected in the race. But selection under such circumstances would not be a selection of the able. It would be a selection of the privileged. The reason, therefore, which forges that in the third respect we should treat men unequally demands that in the first two respects we should treat men as equally as possible. On the other hand, it can be urged that if it is good for the social body to get the most out of its members, it can get the most out of them only by making them equal as far as possible at the very start of the race. That is one reason why we cannot escape equality. But there is another reason why we must accept equality. A statesman is concerned with vast numbers of people. He has neither the time nor the knowledge to draw fine distinctions and to treat each one equitably, that is, according to need and according to capacity. However desirable or reasonable an equitable treatment of men may be, humanity is not capable of assortment and classification. The statesman, therefore, must follow some rough and ready rule, and that rough and ready rule is to treat all men alike, not because they are alike, but because classification and assortment is impossible. The doctrine of equality is glaringly fallacious, but taking all in all, it is the only way a statesman can proceed in politics, which is a severely practical affair and which demands a severely practical test. But there is a set of reformers who hold out a different ideal. They go by the name of the Arya Samajist, and their ideal of social organization is what is called Chaturvarnya, or the division of society into 4 classes instead of the 4,000 castes that we have in India. To make it more attractive and to disarm opposition, the protagonists of Chaturvarnya take great care to point out that their Chaturvarnya is based not on birth but on guna or worth. At the outset, I must confess that, notwithstanding the worth basis of this Chaturvarnya, it is an ideal to which I cannot reconcile myself. In the first place, if under the Chaturvarnya of the Arya Samajist, an individual is to take his place in Hindu society according to his worth, I do not understand why the Arya Samajists insist upon labeling men as Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. A learned man would be honored without him being labeled a Brahmin. A soldier would be respected without his being designated a Kshatriya. If European society honors its soldiers and its servants without giving them permanent labels, why should Hindu society find it difficult to do so? Is a question which Arya Samajists have not cared to consider.